Hello and welcome one and all to my Rings of Power breakdown / discussion, where I will be going over every episode and talking about what I liked, what I didn't like, and trying to engage in a thoughtful analysis about this season as it comes out every week. As always, if you enjoy these kind of videos, feel free to leave a comment down below. I love engaging with thoughtful, considerate, and most importantly, positively aimed constructive criticism. Now, as many of you are probably aware, Rings of Power Season 1 had a fairly controversial release where there was a lot of negativity swarming around it online. But I think it's safe to say that after only 3 episodes, this season is hopefully going to do a lot to alleviate a lot of the concerns that some people had in Season 1. And for me, feels like further vindication that a lot of the slow buildup is going to pay dividends in the future. Last but not least, as a just quick reminder, these videos are going to be a little bit different of a format than you're probably used to if you've been on my channel before. They're going to be a little bit more freeform, a little less heavily edited, and more of just a conversation piece to kind of get us talking about what we thought about each episode each week. Now, if you do enjoy the discussion, feel free to subscribe so that you can be here every week as we continue to go over all the new juicy details we get from this show. And boy, do we have a lot of juicy details to go over. So without any further ado, let's just get right into it and start talking about episode 1 of season 2, Elven Kings Under the Sky. Now the episode opens up with a prologue where we get to see some of Sauron's backstory, and I won't be the first to admit that this was really fun to kind of get this look into the backstory that we had hinted at in season 1. Now, I've seen a little bit of pushback about the way that Sauron is characterized in this scene, and in my opinion, I think the show handled it pretty well. We know from the text that this is a period in Sauron's life where he's, a little bit shaken by the fall of Morgoth. He's not this confident, cunning, dark lord that we are used to from the Lord of the Rings books. He has just been unexpectedly promoted from lieutenant to reigning dark lord, and we see him struggling to facilitate that exchange of power. I love this scene, and I thought it was really fun to get a new look at a different actor playing the role of Sauron. I love Charlie Vickers as the character, and I hope that we get him for every iteration throughout the series, but getting to have this one little look at the idea that yes, this is a shapeshifter, he can change his form, I thought that was a really good nod, and this was probably the best scene that they could have used it for. I do love how a lot of Sauron's speech that he aims at the orcs, as of, the Valar will never forgive you, elves will never accept you, men will never look at you with nothing other than fear, is a great reflection of his own inner feelings about himself and what he is afraid of. He's trying to project his own insecurities onto the orcs. Anytime Sauron is on screen, there's so many subtle details about how he works and how he views things. It's just incredible. And I also really loved the veiny effect that you kind of see when he loses his temper. We see it again in episode 2, I believe, which we'll get into later. We kind of see him zone out, and we've got this like you've got something worthing underneath the surface, which we do get to see what that is a little bit later. But as we've been told in season 1, this scene leads up to the Betrayal of Adar, where he takes Morgoth's crown and shoves it right into Sauron, and then all the orcs swarm him, betraying him and quote-unquote killing him. Now, I heard some mixed feedback about this, especially from people who were within my own watch party, where they questioned the validity of a scene like this and whether or not it has any place being in the lore, since we don't know anything about Sauron being betrayed or killed by the orcs. And I just wanted to kind of explore that a little bit, because I think it's a very important conversation to have about the show as a whole. One of the most important things to remember is that this is an adaptation. It is not a one-to-one recreation of Tolkien's works. And for the record, there is no feasible way to do a one-to-one adaptation of this era of Middle-earth. The writers only have bullet points to go off of, and any other writer, director, studio would be faced with the same hurdles that Amazon is facing, where you need to put a creative spin on things to make the story more narratively interesting when all we really have are dates and times. Now, feeding into Sauron's character as a whole, I think that this is a really good way of showcasing to the audience why Sauron is a threat. I'm not talking about the fact that he was betrayed, but I'm talking about the fact that we are going to see his rise to power. We are seeing him start off with literally nothing. He starts as a pile of goo and turns into what we eventually know and recognize from the books. I think this is such an excellent way of showcasing the strife between orcs and free will and their enslavement to Morgoth, and also the concept of Sauron as a deceiver. How does he gain this power? Because we see in this first flashback, he's trying to gain it through authority. I'm next in line. I deserve to have it. And it doesn't work. So I personally enjoy this change. I love the addition of Adar as a character. I think he works phenomenally as a foil to Sauron, and they contrast so beautifully with each other, with all the ways that they go about trying to do what they deem to be healing Middle-earth, whether it's for the orcs or for everyone. I'm interested to see where it goes. Now, just to jump through a few scenes really quick, I did want to point out, I missed this the first time actually, but we see that there is a passage of time after Sauron is destroyed. It was wonderfully pointed out to me. I can't remember exactly who by, but if you watch the scene closely, you can see the stalactites and the stalagmites as it fades out and fades back in. They actually grow, which I think is a really cool way of showing the passage of thousands, hundreds, however many years it's been since he was defeated. This may have been too subtle of a visual cue, as we're seeing online, judging by the sheer number of people that missed it, myself included on the first watch, but that's besides the point. Everything else with the backstory, I really enjoyed. I think it really set the tone for this season, as Sauron is in the front and center. He is our main character, and we are at his mercy now. Fast forwarding a little bit, not by much, we then get to our next scene, which is Lindon, where we get the direct continuation of the ending from last season, where the rings have been forged, and now we see Galadriel and Elrond returning to Lindon to discuss the creation of these rings and the fact that Galadriel withheld the information about Halbrand. Now, this is something I want to touch on because this was one of the biggest sore points I heard a lot of people complaining about in season 1, which is, why didn't Galadriel warn anyone when she found out that Halbrand was Sauron? And I think this season gives us a few contextual clues about why exactly that happened. Some people are still upset about it. I personally think that they did a decent enough job of explaining it, which seems to be that Galadriel discovered Halbrand was Sauron, but knows that now that he's out there, he is too much of a threat to be left unchecked. And without these rings, the elves are going to have to leave these shores and will be unable to fight him and help the rest of Middle-earth, which is what Gil-galad recognizes as well and chooses to side with Galadriel in this argument. This works for me. I think this is a fine explanation of it. Galadriel basically admits that Halbrand is Sauron within the first minute of her story this season, so they at least didn't play it out as this thing where she kept it secret throughout the entire season, and I think it's better that way. Obviously, Celebrimbor still doesn't know, which is the other sore point. People were upset that, why didn't they warn Celebrimbor? And there's a few things I would like to bring up about that. Some of them move into episode 2 and a little later down in this episode, where we see that messengers are sent to warn Celebrimbor that Sauron is in fact Halbrand. I did have a friend of mine complain a little bit about, and I saw some people online, why did they only send one message? Why did they only send 2 people? That's really stupid of them. They obviously should have sent more, and they should have sent a guard. I agree, but I think there's a couple points to bring up here. One, they are still technically in a time of peace. The journey from Lindon to Eregion is Elven country, which they control. There really is no reason to send an armed guard. There's no threats, really, that could assail them from there to Eregion. We do get some contextual clues that the Barrow-wights are the ones that attack them, which makes sense because why would they be aware of them when it's something Sauron is doing now? The other thing is, later in episode 2, we do see Galadriel mention, and I caught this the second time, I didn't the first time, that Celebrimbor hasn't received any of their messages. I think that was the key word used there, which implies that they had been sending multiple messages. This alleviates for me, and also I think the one scene is enough to get the message across that they are trying to warn Celebrimbor, but they are unable to get the message out because Sauron is preventing them. Next up, we get to see more of Sauron at work, and we get Halbrand in Mordor, which all of the Halbrand Sauron scenes this episode were my absolute favorites of the whole episode. I thought they did such a good job, and Halbrand's plan in Mordor is so genius. I love that it's a 3-factor plan that achieves so much at the same time. First of all, you get Adar afraid, and you convince him to go and attack the Elves and Eregion on your behalf. Second, you start to create this rift between Adar and the Orcs, making them doubt whether or not Adar truly saved them from Sauron. And third, Sauron maintains the identity of Halbrand and saves all the Southlanders from Adar, which, if he ever comes back to Mordor and wants to maintain that King of the Southlands identity, he's got major points now. Lastly, I thought it was just kind of funny that Waldrag ended up beating the snot out of him after he spent the entirety of Season 1 basically being like the #1 Sauron fangirl. Poetic scenes are funny like that. Next, we go into new territory. We are on the outskirts of Rhun with the Stranger and Nori's storyline. Now, there's a few things I want to bring up about this. Obviously, we start off with the dream. You see it shift between the shepherd staff and the wizard staff, which looks vaguely similar to Gandalf's staff from the Jackson films. I just want to put it out there now. The Stranger is Gandalf. He is going to be Gandalf, and I feel like anybody who is still at odds with that needs to come to terms with that. I'm speaking also for myself. I was a major Blue Wizard truther for a while. I wanted it to be a Blue Wizard. I was very curious to see them explore that. There have been too many points towards Gandalf for me to deny it now. A couple of them from this season include the fact that, first of all, Tom Bombadil's hat we've seen looks exactly like Gandalf's hat. I am almost certain he's going to give it to him, especially because we have seen almost all the footage from the Stranger from the trailers in these first 2 episodes. And then we've seen some shots of him with Tom Bombadil. We've seen nothing after. So we don't know what he looks like after he leaves Bombadil's house. I'm guessing it's because he's going to get some new clothes and the hat. That's more of a minor point. I think some of the bigger hints are the fact that Nori and Poppy, I'll get into her later, referred to staffs as Gans. I think that's priming the audience for when they reveal Gandalf's name, but I will dive a little bit more into that in the next episode. Then we're introduced to the Gaudream, or like the Rhun horse riders. They're pretty interesting. I don't really know what to think of them. I haven't really spent a lot of time diving into their roots. I'm not really sure what or who they'll turn out to be. I think they're cool enough characters. The last scene for this we get is the Stranger talking about his home, where he's clearly remembering Valinor. I thought that was a fun scene. Overall, the Stranger and Nori subplot does seem to be one of the weaker ones for me right now, but I am very interested to see where it's going, and it has a lot of moments that I'm really anticipating, so I'm excited to see where it goes. Next, we jump back to Halbrand in prison again. I just wanted to bring up that scene where he tames the wolf, and you see it jump at him, and he doesn't even flinch, and they start speaking in black speech to it. I love that scene. That was a standout for me. But now we go to my favorite part of the episode, which is the Grey Havens. Oh boy, do I want to live there. I had fallen in love with Rivendell and Lothlorien, but I don't know, something about the Grey Havens, that is where I want to live. Maybe it's just my Pacific Northwest roots calling back to me. It's so idyllic. I love it. We are introduced to Círdan. Man, oh man, I have been so excited for this character to make his debut. He is one of my favorite characters. I think he is so cool and underutilized in so many aspects. And not only is he finally in something where he gets not only to be in it, but he gets speaking roles, he is cast perfectly. Ben Daniels as Círdan is phenomenal. He honestly could have been Gandalf for the way that he has this timeless wisdom and levity and sense of peace to him. I don't think he's as cynical enough to be Gandalf. He doesn't have that gruffness, but he has that wise old mentor ability just nailed to a T, and I loved every scene he was in. And that shot of him with the sunset behind him might just be my favorite shot from the season so far. One thing I wanted to bring up from this segment, but I don't know that I like the audio effect they have for the rings. It almost sounds like they are voices in the same way that the Jackson films have the voice of Sauron that you can hear when the ring is out. I don't think that this is the same effect. It sounds more ethereal. It doesn't sound like it's a corporeal voice, which I guess is meant to show that they aren't entirely corrupted by Sauron. But I still think that for the casual viewer and a lot of people that I watch the show with, it gives the impression that these rings are evil, but I don't know. Then we go back to Lindon, we get the message, I talked about that already, and we go back to the Grey Havens where we get that beautiful conversation between Elrond and Círdan, and I just love both the actors here. I think they're both killing it. Robert Aramayo, I am so excited to see what he's going to do this season. I also want to bring up Galadriel in this scene, and I will continue to talk about this in other episodes because she continues to act this way. Everybody who complained about Galadriel acting brash and brazen and demanding her way through everything, I was right alongside you where it grated on me. I understood why they were doing it. It was a little frustrating. Clearly, any problems I had with it are being alleviated because guess what? We now have physical, tangible evidence that Galadriel is going through character growth, which we got at the end of last season, but apparently it wasn't enough for everyone. Anyone who denies it now is criticizing in bad faith and is not willing to engage with it in a realistic conversation. Galadriel has been humbled. She is taking advice, she is seeking forgiveness, and I have no doubt that after all 5 seasons are done, her character journey will leave her where everyone expected her to be in season 1. The next thing I'm going to talk about really quick is the return of Poppy in the Rhun storyline. I'm a little upset about this, I will be honest. I don't like it. I thought that the showrunners did something really new and creative and bold in having Nori and Poppy split up at the end of season 1. I felt like in the first season it was very clear that they were the Frodo and Sam archetype for the hobbits, and I really enjoyed the subversion of expectation where they split up. And I thought that that was a bold move, and I was excited to see where it goes. And chronologically, when you are rewatching this series, Nori and Poppy will spend roughly 40 minutes of screen time apart before they reunite. Not even a full episode passes before they split up and rejoin. I don't know. I knew she was going to join the storyline this season, but I was hoping that there would be a smarter reason for it. And there may still be. She might be being a little dodgy about why she came to help them. There could be something going on back home with the Harfoots she hasn't disclosed yet. I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt for now, but as of right now, Poppy feels like a mistake from the showrunners, that they finished last season, turned around and went, I actually think Poppy should have gone with them. I think we messed up on that. And as of yet, they've done nothing to prove otherwise to me. But I will hold my tongue and wait until the season is finished. When we return to Mordor, we finally get that confrontation between Sauron and Adar. I missed this the first time around, but Adar does mention that he has freed the people of the Southlands, which seems a little odd to me that he did that before they talked, because immediately after Halbrand admits that he can't describe Sauron's new form, Adar goes, "Oh, well then you are no use of me." Okay, well if that was a possibility, why did you free all of his people? Like, I don't know, I think he should have kept that leverage until after, but I do love how unhinged Adar is becoming. You can see the paranoia seeping in. It is fantastic. I love the vow to serve the lore of Mordor. The way that Sauron continues to not lie and only speak in half-truths is such a fun aspect of his character. And last but not least, rest in peace, Waltreg. I just think it was really funny that he was unknowingly killed by the very being he spent the entire first season sucking up to. Last but not least, we get the departure of the Elves. Benjamin Walker's Golden Leaves song is beautiful. I listened to it before the season came out, when the soundtrack dropped. Loved it then. Love it even more now in context. I think it is such a Tolkienian scene. Still blows me away that people can watch this show and see moments like this and continue to say that it doesn't feel Tolkien. What feels more Tolkien than the elves singing as they are departing Middle-earth? Again, you get the rings here. They make it very unclear whether or not the rings are corrupting the elves. It definitely looks like they are being corrupted by the rings, and Elrond is the only sane person, so I continue to validate his feelings because they are valid, because if I was there, I would also be like, oh yes, look at the way Galadriel picked up that ring. One thing I did want to talk about was the idea of the fading of the elves, which is a major plot point in the first season. It's been inverted now. I understand what the show is doing with this. The elves do fade. It is stated that were they not given the rings, their kingdoms would have faded and they would have left the shores of Middle-earth a lot sooner than they had, but because of the rings, they were able to preserve their kingdoms and stick around. Now in the books, they get the rings, they preserve their kingdoms, and the byproduct of that is that now they are able to stay. The show adds drama with the timetable, with the sickness creeping in, with the fading driving them away. This doesn't happen in the books, but I understand why it happens in the show, because there is no drama to the elves needing to preserve their lands. It is just a benefit of Celebrimbor having made the rings. So yes, it is not in line with the lore, but I am okay with the fading of the elves being portrayed the way it is in the show. I think for softcore fans, this is a great way of illustrating that point. And then lastly, we get the episode ending on Sauron's arrival to Eregion, where Celebrimbor has been anxiously awaiting news, and wouldn't you know it, someone's here to deliver it to him. Overall, I am very excited for this season. I am not even cautiously optimistic anymore. I am just optimistic and thrilled and excited, and I think it is safe to say that the setup from season 1 has paid off. Each plotline in this season so far has galloped at a racing head start, and it is so rewarding to see so many of these characters and plotlines able to just get into the nitty-gritty of their story without all the setup we needed in season 1. I think that the writing is a lot stronger, the pacing is a lot stronger, and in many ways, I think this could be a season that changes a lot of fan perspectives of the show and general audiences as well. I'm excited to see what comes next. If you want more consistent ramblings about the show from me, feel free to follow me on Twitter. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.